Hey everyone, today's video is a follow-up to lesson 1.4. I'm going to do a few of these with you, and then you're going to pause the video and try to do a few on your own, see if you can do them, and then you're going to complete an exercise with very similar problems. Alright, so the first one says, which expression is equivalent to 8x to the 1/3 times the square root of 16x to the 12th? So on this problem, you should know by now, since we've went over this, that this also means the cubed root. Since the 3 is the denominator, that becomes the index. And then 8x goes in here with an exponent of a 1, but you don't really need to write the 1 because it's a 1. So, and you also notice that this says the square root of 16x to the 12th. Now, some of you might think, well, I can just multiply those together, and you can't because this index is a 2 and this is a 3, and in order to do that, all the index has to be the same. So what you're going to do is reduce here. So if I have the cubed root of 8x, I'm going to break 8 down to 4 and 2. I'm going to go over here and do that now. So 8 breaks down to 4 and 2, and then 4 breaks down to 2 and 2. So you have 2 times 2 times 2 and then an x. And since I'm pulling out groups of 3, here's a group of 3 2's. So I circle those, and those come outside the radical sign and become a 2 with the cubed root of, and since there's not a group of 3 x's, the x is just going to stay inside there. Now I'm going to go ahead and reduce this. This is going to be, this is a square root. Remember, this is a 2, so I'm going to change to green here. So I'm going to break 16 down, and that's 4 and 4, and 2 and 2 and 2. So this becomes the square root of 2 times 2 times 2 times 2. I'm not going to break x to the 12th down. I'm going to go ahead and think about that in my mind and see if I can do it without writing x 12 times. So here, since I have an index of a 2, I'm going to have a group here and a group here. So I'm going to pull that out. So I'm going to have 2 times 2, because there's 2 2's. So then I'm going to have the square root of x to the 12th. Now remember, I get groups of 2 here. So remember, the trick is 12 divided by the index of 2 is going to be 6. So I'm going to have 6 groups that come outside of the radical, and I don't have a radical left. So all of this reduced to 2 times 2, x to the 6th. So I clean that up a little bit, and I have 2 times the cubed root of x, and then 2 times 2 is going to be times 4x to the 6th. And remember, multiplication is commutative, so I can move things around. So I'm going to put the 2 and the 4 together to give me 8. And then x to the 6th I'm going to put in the front. And then I have the cubed root of x. And go up here and see if one of these is the answer. And it is. Now they're going to try to trick you on a lot of these. Here's the answer right here. So that is exactly how we have it simplified. Okay. But they will try to trick you here. See, 8x to the 12th is pretty close. But see, they didn't reduce this out of the radical. So make sure you're taking those groups out and actually bringing them out in the front and changing them to what they need to be. Okay, let's move on to the next one. So which expression is equivalent to 64x to the 4th, y to the 5th, raised to the 4th power? So if you look at this, for your homework, all I told you was you just have to switch it back to that other 4. This, you have to do a little bit of work. So there's a couple of things you can do here. You can rewrite this to be the 4th root of 64x to the 4th, y to the 5th. You have an exponent of or a numerator of 1 here. So all of these have 1's with them, so I don't have to write those. So I can do it that way. Or, I'll change color here. I can do 64 to the 1/4, x to the 4 times 1/4, and y to the 5th times 1/4. Because remember, power to a power, if I have an exponent raised to an exponent, I can multiply those. And those become 64 to the 1/4. X to the 4 times a 4th would be 4 over 4, which goes to 1. And then y to the 5/4. So either way, it's going to give us the same answer. Notice none of those are the answers yet. We do still have to reduce. Now, even though I showed you this way, I think this way is the easiest because you're used to seeing this expression. So I'm going to go ahead and do this one. So I'm going to have the 4th root of, now 64 breaks down to 8 and 8. 8 breaks down to 4 and 2. And 4 breaks down to 2 and 2 and 2 and 2. So you have 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2. You have 6 2's. You have 4 x's, which I'm not going to write out the long way. I'm going to do that really in my head. And then I'm going to go ahead and group. So I'm going to change to blue color. Now I take groups of 4. If the index is a 4, I group these. And that's going to become 1, 2 on the outside. Now, if you've done that correctly, notice that you're done for multiple choice because it already has a 2, and that's the only one that has a 2 in the front. So you're essentially done here because you know the answer because it's multiple choice. But I'm going to go ahead and show you how you're going to finish this out if it wasn't a multiple choice question. So you're going to bring a 2 out in front. 2 and 2 is not enough to group those together, so I'm going to multiply those and leave that as a 4 inside. X to the 4th, visualize 4 x's, so you have a group of 4, so you'd pull that out in front. And then y to the 5th, you're going to have 5 y's, so you would have 1 y pulled out and 1 y left on the inside. So notice your answer there is going to be A because it matches this. Make sure that you have the index number correct. They'll try to trick you on the index number. Make sure that you do group them correctly. If you cannot do x to the 4th in your head, make sure you go ahead and write those out. So if I had x times x times x times x, that's 4 x's, and 1 comes out in front as here, as I showed up here. And then if I had 5 y's, I would have 4, so I'd pull 1 y out and leave 1 y in the inside. Now, just to make this complete here, I'm going to show you how you would do it on this red. But once again, I think the first way I showed you is the easier way. This right here, if you notice x to the 1st, that's really already done because I just had an x. But if I had this, I would have to change that to the 4th root of 64. And you would break that down. 64 breaks down to 6 2's. And then you could group of 4 2's. So a 2 would come out. This x would just hang out because it's just an x. And then 5/4, that becomes the 4th root of y to the 5th, which is the same thing as I showed you down here. There's 5 y's in there, so one group would come out, and you'd have 1 y left with these 2 times 2. So you're really doing the same thing, just in 3 different parts. So the first way, I think, is the easiest. Okay, so let's look at the third one. Same concept as the last one. I'm going to go ahead and change this to radical form. So 2 is going to become the index. And you have 162 x to the 7th, y to the 3rd, z to the 5th. The exponent is a 1, so everything in here, I could write that, but it's not needed because everything to the 1st, if I multiplied that 1 exponent to 1, I'd get 1. 7 to 1 would be 7. So it's just the same if I leave those off like that. Okay. So let's go ahead and do this now. So what I would look at is how can I eliminate some of these choices. So 162 is on the inside of the radical. So remember, I don't have to write this index, but I'm looking for groups of 2. So 162, I could go ahead and do that. I'm going to go ahead and do that in blue over here. So 162 would be 81 times 2. 81 would break down to 9 and 9. And 9 would break down to 3 and 3. And 3 and 3. So these are the numbers at the bottom. So in here I have 3, 3, 3, 3, and a 2. And because of that index of a 2, I'm looking for groups of 2. So I'm going to group that and that. So that would be a 3 pulled out and another 3 pulled out. So I would have a 2 left on the inside. I'm not going to write the index here at the bottom. So now, just looking at that, you know the answer is A. Because if I have 9 on the outside and 2 on the inside, and I've done that correctly, which I have, then A is the answer. That's the only logical choice, because no other one has a 9 out here. So I'm really done, but I'm going to go ahead and finish the problem so you'll know, if this is not a multiple choice problem, how to do it. So x to the 7th is on the inside, y to the 3rd, and z to the 5th. So x to the 7th, 7 divided by 2 is 3 with the remainder of 1. So remember, this becomes x to the 3rd with the remainder of 1. That y would go on the inside. Y to the 1st. Y to the 3rd, I would have 3 of those in there. So to group of 2, I would have one group of 2. Oh, excuse me. This is not y, this is x. Sorry about that. So now my y's, I would have 3 of them, so 1 would come out and 1 would stay in. And z to the 5th, 2 of those, I would have 2 groups there and 1 would stay in. So you notice it matches there. That matches with this, but I knew that even before I did the letters because the numbers matched up. So just a quick reminder, how I'm doing those is I'm taking the exponent, so like 3, oh, wrong pen. Let me go over here. 3 divided by 2 is 1 with the remainder of 1. Okay, so that was my y's. There's 1 with the remainder of 1. Like 7 divided by 2 on my x's was 3 remainder 1. So 3 remainder 1. And remember, I don't have to write those 1 exponents if I don't need to. Okay, so I'm going to have to make a second video, so go ahead and stop this one and go ahead and watch the next one for number 4.